So this is another motorized bike that I'm putting together, but it's a 2-stroke, it's not a 4-stroke. These 2-stroke kits are a lot cheaper than the 4-stroke kits, but that's not a good thing. I mean cheap like in hardware, the quality of the engine itself. So really do your research before you go and sink some money into a 2-stroke engine kit. But anyways, this engine kit is a Zeta80 Firestorm. I've been reading that it's a pretty decent engine kit. It's not the best, but it's a decent baseline to start from. So when assembling these engine kits, I treat the same as if I'm doing a 4-stroke, because it's literally almost the same thing, except some little differences like mounting the engine will be a little different. But I always start with the back wheel. Everything hinges off of the back wheel, and getting that sprocket centered and straight and true, that's extremely important. So you're going to want to spend a lot of your time trying to true up that sprocket, and it's okay to do that. Take your time, make sure your sprocket is on there very good, that there's no wobble, because you don't want your chain popping off. That's what happened to me in my previous build, and it sucks. Oh, by the way, this is a beach cruiser, a Huffy beach cruiser. In my opinion, they are the best bikes to work on, at least for me. I like working on beach cruisers. They're really simple, there's nothing complex about them. They got no brake cables going all over the place. Yes, they got coaster brakes, which aren't the best, but they're pretty simple and they're really easy to work on, and they're quite reliable. Now this engine doesn't have a centrifugal clutch. It's an actual legit type motorcycle clutch almost. You do have to pull the clutch lever in to pedal, and there is a locking mechanism on that clutch lever. It's not a good locking mechanism, it's kind of crap. And then when you want to accelerate just like a motorcycle, you actually depress the clutch lever as you're giving it gas to go. But it shouldn't be too bad. This engine's extremely small. You're not going to get yourself in trouble. Even if you drop the clutch, you'll probably just stall it out. You're not going to do any wheelies on it. Here for the rag joint, it's okay to cut it as long as you don't cut it right here where the bolt is at. Just cut it in between the bolts, and that way you can wrap it around this hub. Otherwise you're just going to have to take all these spokes off to get one of these behind the spokes, and that's just a pain in the butt to do. You're not damaging it, you're not hurting anything. It's okay, you could do this. The strength is going to come from the bolts clamping it down, and from the back plate. The back plate's going to go on the back here, so you're okay to cut that. Also, the hardware that they give you could see that this is using that flange. This is like a flange type block nut. I'll throw this away. Yeah, throw this away and get some actual nylon lock nuts. The flanges, they get caught in the threads, and when they do, you cannot get these off. You'll not be able to unscrew them out. So these are as good as garbage. So this is the part where you want to go real slow. You want to try to make sure that the sprocket is aligned perfectly as you can. That's why I only use 3 bolts. Because if I tried to use all 9 bolts, I wouldn't be able to line this up. So I do it with the 3 bolts, try to get it as centered as possible. Then I'll go ahead and bolt down the 9 bolts. Now when I do this, I just kind of eyeball it at first. I just try to get it to where the threads are almost exactly the same, and then I'll go in and I'm gonna spin this around, and if you could see a wobble in this, I'll go and try to take the wobble out. But yeah, you want to spend as much time as you can trying to straighten and true this sprocket. I got it on as straight as I can. Yeah, that's one thing that sucks about these coaster brakes. They have the brake arms, and you gotta bend them. You gotta bend them this way, and then bend this piece back a little bit so it can clear the bolts. Otherwise, it's going to be rubbing up on the bolts. But I think I got it good enough. If you got a vise or a C-clamp, you'll be able to bend this. It's not that hard to bend. Now, I didn't bother putting grease in there. I just used some WD-40. It felt pretty smooth. I didn't feel anything binding up, so I'm just going to leave it as is. Now I know this tire's not in the best of condition, but it'll be fine for now. Okay, I actually put it on backwards, but I flipped it back up. This is supposed to be up so you can have the U-bolt up here. If it was the other way around, the U-bolt would smack your engine, so it has to be up here. Put on a lot of Loctite here on the studs, and then I put this jam nut on just to make sure this doesn't back out. I also put this inner tube. The inner tube that I took out of here, I cut it up and put it here. You don't have to do that, but I just did so it doesn't mess up the paint. I also tried to align the sprocket up as best as I can. That's kind of tricky because you got to mount the engine, bolt it all up, and also try to make sure that your engine is in straight and not at an angle. So that's something you have to watch out for. And I put on a mechanical speedometer. This is in kilometers an hour, not miles per hour. This pedal is kind of really close to the exhaust. The exhaust is touching the frame here too. If it becomes a real big issue, I'm gonna have to modify and create my own exhaust. I actually had to take off the gas tank so I could put on this petcock. So I had that backwards. You want to put this on first, then your gas tank. Otherwise, this is just going to hit your frame and you won't be able to get it on. You can pull the pin out. You don't have to use that, but I prefer using that because it secures it on your handlebar so it doesn't slide around. But you don't have to use that pin if you don't want to drill into your handlebar. Yeah, it's kind of hanging out here, but this wasn't large enough to stuff all that in. But it should be fine. Oh, by the way, I ended up having to cut this because it was just too long. So I cut it here to make it a little shorter. This spring is acting like a heat shield for this cable here. It's not going to compress or do anything. It's, like I said, just the heat shield from the engine. This is the spring that you use on this side here. Probably should have put the chain on first before doing this, because I got to take this off to wrap the chain around the sprocket back here. So I should have done that first. Everything's put together. I'll get some gas in it and then I'll go riding in a later video. It's nighttime, I gotta go to sleep. Alright, see you in the next one.